Oh my god, he's dead! He's gone! Where is he gone, my dad? Oh, how could this have happened? My dad is gone.
Why are you crying, Johnny? The father is there.
No, he's dead. Can't you?
He's there. Look, his body is there.
No, can't you see? He's gone. He's gone. He can't talk to me. What do you mean? He's here. You fool.
What do you mean he's not here? I can see here. Look, the body is there. His eyes are there. His nose, his legs, his arms. Your father is still here. Why are you so worried? Why are you crying here like a mudha?
Oh my god. I'm a fool. I think that he's the body. The Bliss Podcast.
Chatting with the Hare Krishnas.
Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So, welcome back to the Bliss Podcast. Episode unbeknownst to us, we are lost now in the sea of Bliss Podcasts. So many Bliss Podcasts. You can go on the YouTube channel. You can swim in the ocean of Bliss Podcasts and have a good time on this channel. You can go deeper. So, I'm your host, Maitreya Rishi Dasa. I'm here with His Grace Purajit Prabhu. Hare Krishna Prabhu. How are you?
Hare Krishna, I'm very happy to be with you, all of you, and every one of you today, tonight, and tomorrow also, and the day also.
Ever present. Thank you so much for being so present with us. Thank you.
Ever present by the beauty of Krishna consciousness.
So, yes, today we decided we're going to talk about bogus scientists. Not that all scientists are bogus, of course. There are some nice scientists, but and also science in general it's had some good effect on society. Is that they've produced some admirable things, but in general, science without Krishna consciousness or God consciousness is condemning people to a atheistic worldview, and it's cementing their atheism more and more and increasing their desire and their facilities for material enjoyment. And also, people are brainwashed to ascertain everything through the scientific method. So it also is very difficult for us to preach sometimes because people don't like to accept religion or authority or the idea of God or the soul because they have a bad impression of the latter things, or they also can't see the soul or see God, which is, it's against the empirical process of science. So it can be a big impediment for preaching also. So in this podcast, we're going to be talking about why the scientific method is not perfect, why it is dogmatic, and why you should accept the real scientific method of Krishna consciousness. So I know you've had a lot of experience preaching, Prabhu. So how have you experienced these scientists in your experience of preaching?
I remember one time I met a girl on book distribution in Montreal, a scientist girl, and she said that the scientists made life out of matter. And I said, really? And she said, yeah, it's an established fact that's already been done.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like,
She went so far.
yeah. So then I said, and who accepts this? And she said, by the consensus. Like, and I asked her, how do you like, who is who is that who says that it is a fact? And she said, the scientific consensus. So scientific consensus, it means that the majority of the scientists in some kind of a committee that also is limited, they have a voting, and they vote what is science and what is not science. So then I ask her, so let's say the scientists, they decide that Adolf Hitler was a very nice man. Then if the scientists, they vote, then it's a fact. So then she became very offended,
Wow.
and she said, "This is not the same." And but it is the same.
Yeah.
It is the same. This is the scientific method. Ultimately, it's just bunch of fools. They sit together and they make a decision, and then we have to follow this as the absolute truth.
Right.
Actually, that is so. The absolute truth, in the sense that the scientists, they instruct the government on what to do, and the government means police, army,
Wow.
and if you refuse, they're gonna put you in jail or kill you. I mean, I'm really exaggerating, but it can come to that in extreme cases also. So it is good to expose these rascals, so-called scientists, and Srila Prabhupada has come here to save us from these rascals who are posing as scientists. They're not scientists; they're just materialists who are polluting the wisdom, uh, even common sense wisdom that people have with their so-called theories, just in order for a certain class to exploit the other classes. So yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's one of the points I was thinking of in preparation for this was that uh, science is actually dogmatic, as opposed to, because scientists, people who are fond of science, it's a broad term also, but generally people who are fond of the scientific method and general scientific conclusions that we have, atheistic conclusions or whatever, um, they are not, they're against religion in general. Generally, they say religion is dogmatic. People who follow religion are dangerous fanatics who just have faith in some made up words, and then they base their whole life on those made up words, and their whole goal of life is adjusted to those authorities, utopian ideas, authorities that we don't even know whether they're perfect authorities. So this is kind of is kind of an interesting hypocrisy from the scientific community, because actually they themselves are dogmatic, and why they're dogmatic is because they pose as perfect authorities, and like you said, you have to accept, otherwise you're like kicked out from the world. No one has any respect for you if you go against the scientific consensus without questioning actually who are the scientists, what is their method, why do we accept it as infallible. And because they force this absolutism or this dogmatism, it makes science very hypocritical also.
People in general, they have this illusory idea that the society nowadays is very free, that anyone can do anything. There's democracy, and there's no like control. Everyone can do whatever he wants, and if you have some point, there's a forum, an atmosphere where you are heard, and
Okay,
like that. They think that compared to, let's say, Middle Ages or some Muslim countries, we're very advanced, very liberal, so this is bogus illusion. This is itself a propaganda that people are buying. It will never be like that, because Krishna says, Chaturvanya Maya Sistam Guna Karma Vibhagashaha. The different classes of men are there by nature. So there are the Shudras, the workers, who are not very intellectually oriented. And this is not an insult, this is just a natural division in the society. There must be workers, there are businessmen, there are politicians, and there are the intellectuals. So in any society, not just Varnashram society, what is, unfortunately known by a misinterpreted term caste system nowadays. Not just in this Varnashram society, but any society, there the intellectuals, there are the politicians, there are businessmen, and there are workers. And workers are always in majority. So the workers are always following some kind of a dogma. You can't you can't go without authority. You can't go without ideology. It's always like that. And these Shudras, they do not question the authority. They just stay because they have no time. They have no time. They have no patience to do the research. So they just pick up whatever authority uh, is presented to them, and they accept that because it's comfortable. If you were challenging the authority, just like you know the Hare Krishna devotees, they challenging all authorities: religious, social, political, cultural, sexual authorities. All authorities were challenging. you know Nutritionist, vegan authorities, all authorities you can imagine were challenging. um, then you have to struggle like crazy. Prabhupada says this Krishna consciousness movement is a fight against the whole world, because the whole world is in Maya, in illusion, simply on the bodily platform of life. See, everyone is thinking, I am this body, and what is connected to the body is mine. So we're challenging all of that, and we struggle. So those who don't want to struggle, they go along with the nonsense idea, whatever they tell them. And now, because the leaders are very sophisticated, they have cheated the people that they have a liberal, free system. You have the internet. Here's a nice toy you can play on the iPhone. You have nice games there, and Google. So people are so puffed out with this Google. Sometimes when we go on a book distribution, they say, "Oh, I can Google it. I can. Everything is on Google." It's not true. You can't Google it, because when you Google it, you're gonna get links that has been already chosen by the people who programmed the Google for you. It's not that you can Google it. Google, that's a big illusion. You Google and you get whatever they decide um, that you should check out. Wikipedia and all these. It's all nonsense. All predisposed, pre-ordered information, and people are just consuming like pigs. So yeah, Prabhupada actually says today, when we were with Prabhupada on a morning walk, through hearing him, we go every day with Srila Prabhupada on a morning walk. He said that Shudras like to hear from Shudras, and he said the scientists are also Shudras because they don't have actual knowledge. You see, so these divisions are there naturally. From the material point of view, there's organization in any society. But why Prabhupada says they're Shudras? Because they're not qualified. They don't know the actual knowledge. The actual intellectuals should study the Vedas and employ all the people in devotional service to Krishna. Engage everything you have in the service of Krishna, not in service of the state, government, family, and these are all unreliable masters. It's Krishna who is supplying the air, the water, the natural gifts of nature, the essential things that you need for your life, your food, your drinking, your water, your this, your that. That is Krishna who's supplying all this. So the society should be engaged in serving Krishna, not these politicians and businessmen and rascal scientists and so on, who are simply exploiting and enjoying and exploiting these workers, these Shudras.
Very nice. Yeah, I remember reading also in your Proof of the Vedas book that you kind of go to the basis of what actually our understanding, our perception of reality is brainwashed into us. Just like now you explained that people go on Google for all of their information, but actually the Google is manipulated by people who whatever have some motivation, or even if they don't have a motivation, they're manipulating the information somehow or other, and so you're not getting the actual full picture or the picture at all, and so people's perception of reality has changed in that way. But actually, in Proof of the Vedas, you go very deep and say, well, your parents, they give you a certain worldview, the school, and even the set of options that you have to pick from your sources of information, that is also limited and controlled and tailored by your culture and by your sex and by your desire, and so many things are there. Even the very body that you're born with, because of your karma, also gives you a predisposition to a certain kind of knowledge. So everything is how do you say? Everything is subjected. Everything is subjective, and everything becomes narrow. You become narrow-minded, just existing in the material world. All of your knowledge is kind of filtered through so many things. So yeah, so back on the thing of science, like why, and also you mentioned a very interesting point that the Hare Krishna devotees, they are questioning everything, and I was thinking that why we can do that also is because we have the understanding that everyone has imperfect senses in the material world. So if everyone has imperfect senses, that means that all these authorities, all these people who are authorities, they're all it's all nonsense. It's all speculation, or at least imperfect, right? So
No value.
no value. If the mind is imperfect, then it can't come to any perfect conclusion. So you can't have any perfect knowledge. You can't come to any proper conclusion. So therefore, you can question all these authorities. So now, of course, namely, we're talking about the scientists. So that's why we have the That's why we have the audacity to question science. Srila Prabhupada, he says, I'm not a scientist. How I can question these scientists? Because I have Shastra, or scripture. Shastra is the Sanskrit word for scripture. So with scripture, from Vedas, we understand that every conditioned living entity, every conditioned person or being in this world has a set of imperfect senses. The body is a covering which gives them imperfect perception. So they can't give you a perfect knowledge, and the scientists are not exempt from that category of people. So therefore, we can question the scientists. We don't accept it as an absolute truth. So yes, now I just want to, if it's okay with you, I wanted to read a conversation with Srila Prabhupada. That in Prabhupada's books and in his preaching, he brought up some very controversial things. So things that are against the whole status quo of society. They really go against the grain, and they make people uncomfortable because people accept things that have been propagated by science to just be fact or history or common knowledge. For example, the fact, or the so-called fact, that we landed on the moon. People generally accept this as something that really happens. People believe this. But Srila Prabhupada, he said, no, what more nonsense are you speaking? You can't land on the moon. Not that he was speculating, not that he was emptily criticizing, not that he was a conspiracy theorist and he was saying, well, the camera footage doesn't exactly match up, and look at the burn marks on the moon. That's not how a rocket works. So many speculations people have, which are good because we didn't land on the moon. But Prabhupada, he attacks this dogmatic acceptance of something that you can't perceive with your senses, or he does it on the basis of Shastra. So in this conversation, Srila Prabhupada, he talks about he explains how we understand that there are life on other planets, and inadvertently also that we didn't land on the moon, and I can also go into that in a second. So Srila Prabhupada says, even on the sun and moon there are living entities. What is the opinion of the scientists? Dr. Singh, who is one of Srila Prabhupada's disciples, who is a scientist, Sarup Damodar Prabhu, he's left his body now, but he was a scientist, so he was conversing with Srila Prabhupada on these kind of things. He says, they say there is no life there. Srila Prabhupada, that is nonsense. There is life there. Dr. Singh, they say that there is no life on the moon because they did not find any there. Srila Prabhupada, why do they believe that? the moon planet is covered with dust, but within that dust, the living entities can live. Every atmosphere is suitable for life, any atmosphere. Therefore, the Vedas describe the living entities as sarvagatao, sarvagataha, which means existing in all places. The living entity is not material. Although encaged in a material body, he is not material. But when we speak of different atmospheres, we refer to different material conditions. Karandara, as another disciple, they say that the moon's atmosphere is unsuitable for life, but all they can legitimately say is that it is unsuitable for life as they know it. Srila Prabhupada, the Vedas say that the living entity has no connection with material things. He cannot be burned, cut, dried up, or moistened. This is discussed in Bhagavad Gita. Mr. Singh, scientists, lost that now. Scientists extend their knowledge about life on this planet, thinking that it must apply to life on other planets also. Srila Prabhupada, yes. They are thinking foremost of their own selves. They are thinking limitedly, in terms of their own circumstances. This is what we call Dr. Frog's philosophy. Once there was a frog in a well, and when a friend informed him of the existence of the Atlantic Ocean, he asked the friend, "Oh, what is this Atlantic Ocean?" "It is a vast body of water," his friend replied. "How vast? Is it twice the size of this well?" "Oh no, much, much larger," his friend replied. "How much larger? 10 times the size?" In this way, the frog went on calculating, but what is the possibility of ever understanding the vastness of the great ocean in this way? Our faculties, our experience, and our powers of speculation are always limited. The speculations of the scientists only give rise to such frog philosophy. So, yeah, Srila Prabhupada very nicely explains here that scientists their method is based on their limited sense perception, their limited experience. So they try to apply that method to things beyond their experience. They have no jurisdiction in that field of knowledge. For example, and why it relates to the moon landing is because Prabhupada says, well, if they landed on the moon, they say there's no life there, but there is life there because we get information from the Vedas. So they speculate that there's no life everywhere, but that's outside of their experience. They're outside of their jurisdiction, outside of their set of instruments that they use for ascertaining knowledge. So this is a cheating, because they are posing as people who know, but actually they have no power even to know. So I wonder if you have any points in this connection, Prabhuji.
Yeah, this is beautiful. Beautiful smash by Srila Prabhupada. This moon landing is like a great pride of the scientists. So we have done it. So Prabhupada is just exposing it. I mean, even if they landed on the moon, why should we believe in that? Just because someone shows you a movie. So Prabhupada is questioning, just like they question us. How do you know this is by Krishna, written by Krishna, spoken by Krishna? The Bhagavad Gita, where it was only 1,000 years old. Why you say 5,000? We can also challenge the scientists. Why you believe that they went to the moon? Just because it's on the TV? There's a King Kong on TV. Doesn't mean that King Kong is in the streets. Very simple. Very, very simple and very childish arguments they have. So, yeah, very nice.
Yeah, I was recently debating with a scientist, so to speak, on the street, and I questioned him that, how do you know that? Because he was talking about, I can't remember how we came to on the conversation, but he was talking about the fact that there's rovers on Mars or whatever. So I said, how do you know there's rovers on Mars? And he said, well, I'm a scientist. I know. I can understand when they tell you, they receive the messages from the rover, the signal, they get the pictures. I said, yeah, but I mean, really, like, how do you know that these are not just lying to you? And also another thing is that because we have imperfect senses, any instrument that we create, it also must be imperfect, and the senses by which we perceive, or the senses by which we utilize that instrument, are also imperfect. So you have a doubly, it's not that two imperfects make a perfect. Exactly. You have a doubly imperfect.
Double assurance of stupidity.
Yeah, exactly. Your compound stupidity about this thing that you're trying to ascertain. So, even if the rover was on Mars, let's say that they got it on there somehow or other, your ability to know or make a real conclusion about life on Mars, for example, would not be a very good way of ascertaining the truth about the matter. So now we also give the positive that the scientific methods is bogus. But how do the Krishnas or the Hare Krishnas or what is the proper way of ascertaining knowledge? I think we already covered this a little bit, but maybe if you have any comments to or a way to finalize this, Prabhu, maybe you could.
Well, we have the same. Or the same method. We accept the authority, and we have the consensus. But the difference that we inquire about God, we have the interest in God, in the absolute truth. That is the real science. Like Prabhupada was mentioning, that you see the airplane, right, and uh, you conclude what Prabhupada said. Remember
About the ocean, the plane coming out of the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's. um, Sorry, just relate me to one more time your question.
They study the matter just from the middle point.
Yeah, from the middle point. So they don't look at the original cause. That was Prabhupada's. Pressing, what he was pressing. That you don't. The scientists, they don't study the original cause. They just observe what's happening. They don't go for the origin. And he says it's just like if you see a plane rising out of the above the horizon. The scientists, by the scientific method, by their own logic, they say, well, that means that the plane was born of the sea. But they don't inquire, well, maybe there's the horizon, maybe this plane is just coming over the horizon, and it's only due to our perception that we can see it coming out of the sea. They don't go like that. So they have a very faulty conclusion.
Yeah, so they're not real scientists. When we smash the scientists, we don't smash the science as, you know, a reasonable method and testing and questioning. We don't rule out these um, faculties to understand the truth, but we question the authorities, and their objective. Their objective is sense gratification to satisfy this temporary body, which will not exist very soon, and they completely avoid the question of death. Why the death is here? Why are we here? Why are we born in the first place? What is the purpose of this universe? If you think that, oh, I'm just like an animal, eat and sleep and fight, and why you have this propensity to question and to think, why these questions arise in your mind? Well, why are we here? Why this question is there? Again, the scientific, the real science, is to go and solve that question. Right? The scientist is not satisfied with some blind dogmas. Oh, it's okay. It's always been like that, and don't question. Don't go there. Don't inquire. Why not? There must be a cause to everything. Just like I'm caused by my parents, they're caused by their parents. There must be the cause of everything. Why should I not question about God? So this is the real science, and we're taking the authority of the Vedas and the Vedic tradition because that is the most comprehensive and the most complex science known in the world. So we're studying from the Vedas. Just like if you want to understand English literature or medicine or law or something, you go to Harvard University or Cambridge or La Sorbonne or big universities because there's the biggest amount of knowledge and professors and tradition and the amount of information there, right?
Yeah.
Very simple. That's how that's why we follow what we follow, Krishna consciousness. So there's a very little difference. externally, it seems like they're accepting it, or we're accepting authority. But the objective is different, and the authorities are different.
Right. Okay, that's very nice. Yeah. But there is one thing, if I can just bring up a little, a little.
Yeah.
That. Okay, yeah, that's true. That's the scientific method. I mean, someone would, based on what I said, might criticize. Well, science has produced things by the scientific method. I mean, you can't deny there are also observable things that are relative, of course, but like I don't know, Newton's law of gravitation. You can prove Newton's law of gravitation with the scientific method.
The law.
That's
They have not produced the law. The law is there by Krishna.
Yes, that's true. But from what it can do in terms of observation or testing or whatever, the scientific method is true just by its own merits.
And actually, Prabhupada says that gravity doesn't. It's a
Misconception.
bogus concept. There's no such a thing as the law of gravity.
Okay.
They made up this law.
Well, yeah. Again, it's just Isaac Newton is imperfect conditioned soul, and he just again made a speculation, and it's generally accepted.
Prabhupada says that why the apple falls from the tree, why the ripe apple falls and the unripe doesn't fall from the tree, if there's gravity. Yeah, he challenges. There's some other causes.
Oh, right. Okay, it's
For
not
it.
independent in its own. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
But okay, but I was going to go to another point. If you that okay, it's all right. There's some merit. Okay, some merit. I'm not going to say it's fully meritable now, but there is some merit to it. But the mistake is that people in general and scientists, they try to apply this methodology to understanding God. Generally, people say you must prove there is God. You must make an experiment to find God. Show me God. So this you cannot enter into the realm of the science of Krishna, of God, with this kind of methodology. It's not possible.
You can.
Oh yeah?
Yes, you make an experiment. You chant Hare Krishna.
Yes, yeah.
You apply the process. You accept a bona fide spiritual master. You shave your head. Whatever it takes. You be a real scientist. Don't be superficial scientist. Blindly following, blindly believing. Oh, this is not for me. That's a blind faith. If you say, oh, this is not, I will not be satisfied with this religion. So don't be superficial, dogmatic, blindly following, but be a scientist and make an experiment.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Okay, that's true. Yeah, this is like you can't make a judgment unless you've actually tried it yourself, unless you've actually tested the waters and you yourself have proved that it doesn't work. Then how can you say it doesn't work or that it's just a fanaticism?
Yeah, this is not a scientific objection. It's a philosophy of fools. Just like there's some people who don't want to learn. They don't want to enter the university. Vagabonds, right? The vagabonds. So they say that, oh, why should I go to university and learn? I have my own philosophy. I'm gonna do my own thing. So then you cannot learn. You will never learn like this. So you must come, accept a bona fide spiritual master, and apply the Vedic scientific method of experiment, observation, and critical thinking, and study the Krishna consciousness philosophy seriously, not superficially. Oh, it is not for me. It is a religion. It's from India. Oh, it's not for me. Oh, it's too many restrictions. I like my meat. Like this is not scientific at all.
Okay, very nice. So yeah, then just a couple other points I wanted to bring up. That also scientists, they say that they don't accept anything that can't be perceived with the gross senses.
That's another bogus thing because every scientific experiment begins with a theory.
Yeah.
So in order for them to make an experiment and to move forward in their advancement of science, they must have a theory and they must believe that they can prove that theory.
Right.
If they don't believe that they can prove that theory, why on earth are they doing that damn experiment?
That's true. But someone might also say, well, they base their experiment on something that they observe within the relative world. They, for example, they see the apple is falling from the tree, so they hypothesize the law of gravitation and they make an experiment to prove that. But but this is not exactly the point I wanted to bring up. The point I wanted to bring up is that actually it's
Wait, I want to counter that.
okay.
That's not true. Just take, for example, this iPhone. You can't observe any iPhone in nature, right? But Mr. Jobs or whoever, damn nonsense he was, he had this faith that there could be a machine like that. No one could perceive. He had to convince so many people to invest in his belief, in his faith in non-existing entity iPhone, right?
Yeah.
And then okay, they invested, they made it, and now it's there. Now it manifested. Similarly, we say you accept Krishna theoretically, like Mr. Jobs accepted the iPhone theoretically, it might exist in the future. You accept, yes, if I apply this process of chanting Hare Krishna and accepting bona fide spiritual master, applying the process, giving up sinful activities, that one day I will see Krishna face to face by the scientific method. What's the difference? There's no difference.
That's true. So, but even the scientists, they do actually accept these things that they cannot see and are just totally speculation. Like you just proved also nicely. I have something in connection with this. There's a nice quote from this disciple I was mentioning before, Swarup Damodar Prabhu. He has a nice book, The Scientific Basis for Krishna Consciousness. And he gives an example of how these scientists, actually a lot of science and mathematics is based on complete speculation and things that don't actually even exist that they base their conclusions on. It's very interesting. I'm just going to read. Everyone in the scientific community knows that mathematicians work with an imaginary number called I, which is the square root of -1. iPhone. Just see the connection. So, I mean, of course, I'm not a mathematician, so some of this a little, is a little goes over my head. But anyway, this number does not figure among the natural numbers 1, 2, and 3. However, important branches of like you can see one we ascribe 1 apple, 2 apple,
Right.
3 you can see, but I doesn't necessarily exist within the phenomenal world. So anyway, however, important branches of mathematics, for example, the theory of analytical functions, are based on this imaginary unit. So important branches of mathematics. Now, keep in mind, Sri Damodar Prabhu is in this field of mathematics and science. So when he says important branches of mathematics, I don't know what analytical functions necessarily the impact of that, but we can understand that there's definitely some importance it holds for people or science in the science or the mathematics. It's based on something completely imaginary. Without the help of this branch of mathematics, various complex theories and problems cannot be solved. Thus, the existence of this number cannot be denied. Yet, there is no experiment to prove it. In a similar manner, scientists in the field of statistical mechanics also utilize various conceptual models, ensembles, for example, to explain their theories and arguments. Again, theories, which is what you said, that's also a speculation. So theory is speculation upon speculation to prove a speculation. These are all beyond the realm of experimental science. If scientists are willing to accept these imaginary and conceptual models, what is the difficulty in accepting the perfect knowledge given by Lord Krishna, the supreme scientist? So very nice. Also, I like this point that he presses. So yeah.
The reason why Krishna is a problem, that the existence of Krishna goes against the deep-rooted envy of the conditioned soul, the very basis of his existence in this world as a person who is simply enjoying and imitating God. That is the reason, we're so much infected by this envy towards God that we don't even realize, but our mind has been, throughout our transmigration through so many species have been mechanically adjusted in such a way that it functions completely averse to Krishna consciousness, to the acceptance of the supreme enjoyer as Krishna. So we're not even aware, but the mechanisms of our intelligence and minds are going against the understanding of or against the acceptance of Krishna. That is the reason.
And science is the faith or philosophy that backs up that envy. Right. So, and also I, if I dare so say myself, just said something which connects to another point, that science is actually a faith. And you can't, so many things that people accept, I would say people in general, because generally the mass of people accept scientific conclusions, and it actually infiltrates into, me and Prabhu were just discussing, maybe this morning, I can't remember, that even people in the religious fields, it doesn't matter. If you live in this world, somehow or other, there's these scientific theories, they go deep into the consciousness because, like Prabhu just said, they affirm that atheistic, envious mentality that we all have against God, against Krishna. So they're very deep rooted, but still, scientists cannot prove so many of the things that they claim. So it is, again, back to one of the original points. It's dogmatic. And I wanted to also read a quote that I was recently reading in Prabhu's book, Proof of You, which is coming out soon as a sequel to Proof of the Vedas. And there's a very nice point made there that if the cause of life is matter, then prove it. Replace the blood, make it red again. Replace the bones, replace the heart, replace the muscles, replace the skin. Basically, replace all the organs so that a person can live on. Although appearing as science and a fact, when we push for such a proof, the scientists are silent. They are either working on it or they say that the science has not come to that stage yet. But if you're not able to do it now, then the claim that life comes from matter is nothing but faith, which we tend to think science is not. So, I'm sure everyone heard the skit at the beginning of this podcast. Um, yeah, people. This is one of the scientific conclusions that life is coming from chemicals, and this philosophy or this theory is very, very detrimental. Because if life is coming from chemicals, there's no such thing as a soul, there's no such thing as God, then people have no impetus for taking up to spiritual life. They waste. There's no such thing as the self, as you. So people have no impetus for taking up to self-realization, you-realization, and they waste their whole life. But the basis for people wasting their life is a faith only. You can't prove it. Someone posed this theory, and no one took the time to question, actually, is this at all back upable? And it's not. So very interesting.
Prabhupada himself, he says that perhaps I am the first person who's challenging these scientists with this theory of life is coming from matter. And it's a fact. He's one of the first and the only. Jai.
Jai, Haribol. Yeah, I mean, Prabhupada is challenging everything in material existence. So he's a spiritual revolutionary. Yeah. So this is a very big point that life is not actually coming from chemicals, and this is also something that Srila Prabhupada is really. If you take the time to read Prabhupada's books or hear from Prabhupada, you'll notice that Prabhupada is often pressing on this point because it's really it goes deep also into our ingrained atheistic mentality. And so there are some smashes for this. I don't have them here, but there are some smashes for this life coming from chemicals, and I just wanted to go through some of the scientific conclusions, and we can smash them with Prabhupada's arguments and with logic and like that. I think it's good fun. So yeah, this life coming from chemicals is provable in so many ways. One example that I remember off the top of my head that was very vivid also, Prabhupada gives. He's on a morning walk and he sees a tree. So Prabhupada points out to his disciples that it's a dead tree, and he says, "Why this tree? What is the difference between this tree and a living tree?" Why do people water a living tree and not water the dead tree? Because from experience, they know that if you even if you water the dead tree, it won't come back to life again. So something has left the living tree, and now scientists they say it's chemicals. Um, but if it is chemicals, where is that chemical? Right? I mean, the all the chemicals. If you were to analyze the tree, all the chemicals are still there. Nothing's left of the tree. You know what? There's another point in the proof of you where you say if you took a snapshot of a person, let's say, before his death, just before a moment before his death, then you took a snapshot after his death. What is the difference? You know, the person is not, the person is alive, and then the person is dead. What has changed? The body is still there. The chemicals are still there. The chemical is just evaporated, or some chain is broken. I mean, let's kick out the soul. You know, let's not put that. Let's not postulate that theory. Let's just say it's chemicals. What is that chemical? And if you know, why can't you replace it in the body and make the body alive again?
Yeah, when a material object breaks down like a car, you can replace what is missing and make it work again. So do that with the human body. Why can't you do it? If life comes from matter, why don't you do it? It's a very important challenge. And you can ask this to any high class PhD scientist. He will not be able to answer. It's a crucial thing, crucial point. I think this is one of the most important arguments Prabhupada gave to smash the scientific community.
And they will say, well, we can do it in the future. Science is progressing in such a way, we have so much advancement, we're heading in that direction, we've made breakthroughs, so on and so forth. But because they don't have it now, they certainly cannot claim that life is coming from chemicals. They have no basis for this faith at all. It's not even based on logic.
Yeah, in the future, it's like the Christians, they say, you go to church, and in the future, you'll go to heaven. You accept Lord Jesus Christ as your Savior and Master, and in the future, you go to heaven. Not now, in the future.
Yeah, it's like a post-dated check. You know, it doesn't actually have the money. If you're so foolish as to accept, someone says, "I'm going to give you $1 million. You please do this work for me," and you do the work. Sorry, they say, you know, I'm going to give you $1 million, and they write you a number on a piece of paper. Here's $1 million, and you do the work for them. I mean, that's foolish. You don't say I'm a millionaire now just because I have this piece of paper. The person actually hasn't produced the money which he has promised. So similarly, scientists they might say that life is coming from chemicals, but they haven't produced anything which amounts to this. They can't even produce the most simple form of life. They can't even produce one blade of grass. So what to speak of making a human being or intelligent life, complex life. So this is like I said in the beginning, this is a big cheating. Um, so yeah, there are many other things. Of course, we could be here forever talking about the various theories that science postulates and how we can go about smashing them. But it's kind of also approaching time here now, so maybe I just want to cover one more point. Out of many that scientific progress is dangerous, and it actually modern, at least in the direction it's heading now, it should be stopped because it's heading towards destruction. There's so many. Actually, science now, if you really look at what is it being employed in, it's not only propagating the atheistic mentality, trying to prove the non-existence of God, wasting people's money and making these big hydrogen colliders which achieve nothing and break down or whatever. It's going towards the production of weapons of mass destruction, and eventually, with this paired with the atheistic mentality, life doesn't exist, there's no God, there's no reason for existence at all, that spells disaster.
Very true, yes.
So, yeah, this should be stopped. Now, I just have one question for you, Prabhu, is that, of course, like we said in the beginning, science can be dovetailed in Krishna's service also, at least the products that have been produced of science, excluding, well, maybe not even excluding, weapons of mass destruction. So how can scientists and scientific methodology and scientific products of science be engaged in Krishna service?
Well, you take the bomb and throw it on the atheist's head.
Okay, that's conclusive. All right. Yeah. So anyway, we talked in this podcast about science. There were many other points. Hold on, let me just see how much time we have left. Oh, maybe we could cover a couple more things now, or should we go? We also go on regular book distribution and Harinam Sankirtan, so we're trying to manage these various um, outlets and a little time crunch.
By the way, there was a joke with the bomb, just so we don't get banned again.
Phil, listen, I know you've been listening to the podcast and you're getting a little worried, but we're just joking, Phil. It's okay. Don't take down the video.
But Prabhupada says the missiles can also be used in Krishna consciousness. He says it in Chaitanya Charitamrita. So, yeah, but yes, why even construct such horrible things as missiles? If you just take a life that is so-called primitive, people taking care of land and cows and living simply, and not creating big cities and big networks. This is just the this propensity to become God. It's all just manifestations. Big skyscraper, big internet. We have to connect the whole world. For what? Why you need to connect now everyone? I need to know. It's very nice. I can know what is going on in New York from London, and from London to China. We can all be connected. What you doing? Connected, talking about nonsense, and sharing the photos of cats and dogs. Your future life. That's why what you said, that the scientific progress should be stopped. It's a fact. Actually, Prabhupada says that this is another answer to your question. That you take a thorn. You have a thorn in your hand or finger. So you take another thorn and you pluck it out. So this is our usage of the modern technology. We use it to explain why it is bogus, and then we throw it out. And simple life, we live simple life. That is the purpose of Krishna consciousness movement. Not that we get stuck here, buying new cell phones every day, just so you can make a podcast and tell people, about Krishna. So Prabhupada says that you can use these facilities, but it must be under the instruction of the spiritual master, because you have that propensity to become God. And these scientists are supplying you all these, devices, so you can be in this illusion. I am controlling everything. I'm omniscient because I can go on Google. I'm like God. I know everything. You see, and these people, they're selling these products because they know people have this vice of trying to become God. So they sell them, yeah, you are God, and you are ass. Go and work hard to get these devices.
Yeah, that also goes on one other point I had, that science, okay, yeah, it gives you devices for sense enjoyment, but and that's not a good thing. I'm not saying it's a good thing, but it can't solve the problems of life, and so in that respect, it is completely useless. It's also useless because like you say, what is the use of any of these things that it produces? I mean, this is just a time killer, a time waster, because you're bored, but it cannot solve the problems of life. And we were just hearing a morning walk that a disciple said to Srila Prabhupada that what is that? That there's a new field, a whole new field of science, ologists, whatever they're called, that want to stop death, and they're endeavoring to stop death. And they released an article, 20 different ways which we can stop death, and not a single one of those ways has ever proved to be true. Of course, if it proved to be true, that would be, big news. But it can't ever prove to be true, because it is the law of nature that we must suffer these things: old age, birth, disease, and death. We must suffer these four things. That is the nature of this world, and it's not possible to overcome the nature of this world with things that are produced by the world itself, aka your mind, the senses, the various material objects elements which you amalgamate into a certain instrument. You can't possibly overcome nature with nature itself. Um, so therefore, science can never solve these problems, and therefore useless.
Just like Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that whatever is temporary has no lasting, and whatever is eternal has no cessation, right? And this has been established by the wise, you know. So this is real science. Real science. You can never violate this principle. Matter is matter, it's temporary, spirit, consciousness is eternal, it's forever, it lasts forever. This is real science. And it was the truth, it is the truth, and it will remain the truth. This is real science.
That's a very nice point to end on. I think that's nice. So thank you very much for listening to this podcast, this Bliss podcast. Thank you for chatting with the Hare Krishnas. We're going to be back again next week on this time, or not this time exactly, because we record this and upload it at a different time, but we're going to be back roughly the same time on Monday, and so please tune in to the Bliss podcast. Hare Krishna.
And I challenge, if there's any scientist listening to this podcast, you write in the comments. You write, you try to reason, you try to back up your so-called scientific method, and we shall respond. I challenge any scientist from whichever country, wherever you are, you write a comment and come and argue and back up your scientific process.
A call to arms, Jai. Okay. Hare Krishna. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Jai Srila Prabhupada.
There's also usually outro music, but I think we have some kind of nice music. I don't want to have to do a beatbox here exactly.